CM Punk confirmed for AEW Collision on June 17th. It's the news we've been waiting for. We've now got it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Double or Nothing. We're going to talk about the excellent episode of Dynamite we got post Double or Nothing. It's your boy Mekz, the WrestleManiac, reporting for Revolution Radio Duty. Who else do we have today?
Yo, people, it's your boy NK, aka the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour. We are here at Revolution Radio, but we're not alone. We are joined by someone. You know, introduce yourself, bro.
Yes, Atlas. Happy to be back, man. Revolution Radio. Let's go.
Big up Atlas coming through. Bro, we got the news out of this episode. We had another one of these Tony Khan segments. Giving his thoughts on everything Collision and kind of selling us on Collision, and it has more news. The news I guess we've been waiting for is now confirmed that CM Punk is returning to the company. He's returning to Collision. Obviously, myself, NK, whether it's here on this show or any other show across WrestHINGS, we've almost talked this to death about our thoughts of CM Punk coming in and all of that. But Atlas, let's hear from yourself. What's your thoughts on CM Punk returning, almost headlining this show? You're looking forward to it? You're not looking forward to it? Because in the stadium, in the arena last night, there was a bit of a mixed reaction, which I was surprised somewhat, but I understand. But yeah, what's your thoughts on it?
Do you know what? Yeah, there's some things about CM Punk that's kind of undeniable, and can't deny that he's a legend. Can't deny that he's a draw. But by that same token, I don't give a fucking monkeys. Like, I don't, like, for me, I don't see a lot of people value different things when it comes to pro wrestling, innit? People talk about draws, they talk about money, and I hear that. But at the end of the day, like, I want to see good wrestling. I want to see good storylines. And if I look at, like, AEW since he's been gone, I don't think there's been a few times where like, the storylines have kind of been a bit jinky, where it's been a bit like, not great. But for the most part, I feel like AEW's been thriving. And with Punk coming back, if the reports are true, with Collision, we're talking about damn near splitting the roster in half just to accommodate for one guy. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just thinking about like the ramifications that come with splitting the roster and having a bunch of guys who are going to work Saturdays and a bunch of guys who are going to work Wednesdays. Like, is there going to be certain matches we're gonna miss out on now? Is there going to be certain storylines we're going to not get to see fleshed out now because of this guy coming back? For me, I just don't know if Punk this stage in his career, obviously he's still a draw, but aside from the drawing power, is everything else that comes with Punk worth it? Do you know what I mean? That's the main thing I'm thinking is it worth it? Because they still have to see each other at PPVs.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. NK, do you think it's worth it?
No, not short term, yes, long term, no. I feel like short term, you're going to get the ratings, you're going to get the pops, you're going to get like the first couple months of Collision, he's going to be in entertaining feuds, but the underlying issues haven't been addressed. This isn't the situation where it's like, okay, all parties involved have done like almost a peace treaty and kumbaya and be like, we're friends again. It's more so a thing of like, okay, the business that Tony Khan's made a business move in it, where it's like, okay, this guy is a valuable asset to the company business-wise. You know, I'm going to see what I can do in terms of keeping him around. But I feel like long-term, this doesn't look good. Obviously, in the best interest of AEW, I would love for all of this to work out and me to be proven wrong. But just the way things ended and the way, like, things haven't been addressed, it's almost been like, okay, we're going to move Punk on this side and then we're going to put the Elite and the other guys on this side. And we just hope that they don't interact with each other, which isn't a long-term solution. It just seems like a stopgap that's going to blow up in people's faces. So obviously, like for me, I've like said my piece when it comes to CM Punk. I still think he's a legend. Like he's contributed so much to wrestling, but at the same time, it's like the return on investment with Punk today, I don't think it's worth all the hassle.
And for me, I think it's one of them ones where, like you were saying, the investment's already been made. You've already paid my man. You've already, brought him in for X amount of years. His contract is already in place. So it's like we've got this guy on our books, our top earner on our books. And although, he's beefing everyone, we're not really going to get him out of this contract because that will owe him a load of money anyway. So how do we make the best of a bad situation? And Collision, or avoiding the issue, like you said, putting a plaster over the big old gash on your arm is almost what they're doing here, isn't it? Like, and just hoping, it will go away, sort of thing. We'll see. Atlas, what did you make of the crowd's reaction? Because I know for facts, if this was WWE, they would have piped in cheers or anything, and AEW were good for letting the organic reaction be seen. Although the camera tried to play tricks and only tried to pick out the CM Punk t-shirts and pick out people cheering, we could hear that it wasn't all people cheering and people were booing. You think that's a justified reaction? You happy the kind of truth showed itself?
Listen, there's always going to be two sides. There's always going to be. Listen, he's easy. What's the word, man? What's the word? Polarizing. He's a polarizing figure, right? You're always going to have your people who defend Punk. You're going to have your people who are opposed to Punk. I'm not necessarily opposed to Punk, but I think the mixed reaction was kind of what I would expect. I didn't know Tony was going to make that announcement. If someone had told me before the show, Tony Khan's going to come out and say, yo, CM Punk's going to be at Collision, what do you think the crowd's going to respond like? I probably would have said to you it's going to be 50-50, especially because they weren't in Chicago. Now, if they were in Chicago, and it was like, in 3 weeks' time, we're coming back here, and I'm coming with the man them, you get me? That's when people would have been like, they would have gone crazy for CM Punk. I just think the mixed reaction is kind of just reflective of how we are as wrestling fans, and wrestling fans in general. Like, even in our Discord, there was a misreaction. On the timeline on Twitter, there was a misreaction. So I just feel like that kind of represents the wrestling fan base. People are kind of mixed on it. We have to just see. Like, I'm down on it. If I haven't made it clear already, I'm down on it. I'm not really open to the idea of CM Punk coming back. I feel like, I'm not saying he should have been sacked. I'm not going to go with Karen and say he should have been sacked, but I just feel like he's been out, but was he suspended or was he recovering from injury? Was it both? I don't know. Like, it feels like the guy who instigated all of this isn't even really having to deal with the consequences of his actions. He's getting his own show. He's getting his own grand opening. Do you know what I mean? And like, how do you do that and get rewarded with your own show? Like, what? Like, what? Is it just me?
Mad. It's mad. It's mad. It's very mad. But I mean, they were all suspended. They lost their titles, didn't they? Everyone that was involved in the altercation. So, he served his alongside an injury, which I guess is somewhat convenient. But they were all suspended. That's what it was. And we're saying this, and I was very vocal saying this until someone reminded me, well, you got to remember that the Elite came back and just won back their trios titles effectively, really. Yeah, they went through 7 matches or whatever, but they were basically rewarded same way. So, these are the top guys. We're talking about top guys. I'm not talking about little mid-card fodder that you would expect to be proper reprimanded and pushed out the company if it was really bad, innit? So, it's interesting. NK, just give a thought to, I thought that they wouldn't announce this until just like night of he turns up, innit? I thought they would only announce this if maybe ticket sales for this particular show aren't doing well or anything like that. I don't know if there's been any news on what ticket sales were looking like, and that's why they've chosen to kind of randomly announce it. Was the ticket sales not good or what?
Yeah, it wasn't looking good, bruv. The ticket sales weren't great. And I thought that's exactly why I feel like they were going to do the whole, oh my god, CM Punk's coming. But I feel like, I don't know if it's a sense of like, we've explored the Chicago market too often, and unless like there's a massive hook, like CM Punk coming, people will be like, you know what, I can miss out on this AEW show. Or it's a thing of like, maybe the product isn't as hot as it was when they first did the first dance. It's a combination of things, but I feel like announcing it, in my opinion, is the best thing, because I don't want them to rehash what they did last time. I feel like capturing the magic of CM Punk debuting after 7 years, like, as much as it is CM Punk debuting again, he's been here before. So it's like, I feel like they should go in a completely different direction. I personally think they should turn him heel, in my opinion. Maybe like if it's Chicago who get cheered, that's fine, but going forward, he should be a heel. and not just because of like his activities or whatever. I just feel like it just makes for a more interesting dynamic. And even if we go in storyline with CM Punk, like Eddie Kingston was calling him out, MJF was calling him out. Obviously, the Hangman stuff was based on real life, but if you look at it kayfabe wise, everyone was calling them out for like having a fake persona as this like grateful wrestler. And then you add that to, obviously the shenanigans that happened at Brawl Out. It's like, a heel persona makes sense. But in regards to like United Center, yeah, I feel like tickets were doing what they were supposed to do. So I feel like they just announced CM Punk to really just, hammer home that, CM Punk's coming back and let's sell some tickets.
Yeah. I thought as much, because even still with these Tony Khan announcements, they tend to let us know ahead of schedule that he's even going to be on the show and have an announcement, and we didn't really get that. So yeah, I mean, I guess we leave it there. We don't really have much more information in terms of CM Punk and what he's gonna do once he comes back, whatever the case is. But like I say, this is the news we were waiting for and waiting to hear. We're going to move on. We're going to talk Double or Nothing. Big up everyone that's watching us live right now. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new here at WRESTHINGS. We do Revolution Radio every Thursday, so you can always tune in for your AEW fix. Double or Nothing. So we've done like a more of a full Double or Nothing review that's going to be on the podcast coming out tomorrow. But we're going to touch on some of the main things, starting with the most sanctioned, unsanctioned match I've seen in a long time. Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho. There was nothing really unsanitary about this. It let us down for what I would say was a pretty good story going into it. I was relatively, invested. The match itself let us down, and I've even went out today and I've said the mixed tag match they gave us Dynamite on the main event way better than the unsanctioned match. And they probably could have done that at the pay-per-view because all these people were moving parts and involved in the story. Atlas, what did you think about that unsanctioned match that was on the Double or Nothing card?
Oh man, it fucking stunk. Listen, I'm so angry because you two know I love Adam Cole, innit?
Yeah.
But he's not like, the thing is, I think in general, this isn't even an Adam Cole criticism. In general, if you're gonna do these unsanctioned matches or whatever, they have to be like spot fests, that match was weird. The pacing was off. It was a bit, and I just feel like Adam Cole wasn't really good at the plunder kind of match anyway. The only good one I've seen him in was the one against Aleister Black on NXT. So I think the booking was all wrong because it could have just been like a last man standing match or a no holds barred match. When you say unsanctioned, I'm trying to see. You get me? When Justin Roberts is talking about your AEW won't be responsible for any, you get me? I'm trying to see some violence, bro. I'm trying to see some, you get me? And I just didn't feel like it was violent enough. I don't know. I feel like sometimes we get away from the fact that a blood feud can thrive in a normal singles match. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know if it's bookers in general just feel, oh, it's a blood feud, it's personal, it has to be like a hardcore match or whatever. Blood feuds can thrive in a singles match. And I think Adam Cole's style and Chris Jericho at this point in his career would have if you just give them 15, 20 minutes to work in a singles match, it would have been fine. And I said this in the Discord. I feel like there was something in the Daniel Garcia thing. I feel like they could have taken this in a different direction and made it more about maybe Adam Cole trying to free Daniel Garcia from the JAS and maybe just giving Adam Cole and Daniel Garcia 20 minutes to work. Or even still, maybe you do a 20-minute match or whatever. If Adam Cole wins, Daniel Garcia leaves the JAS. I feel like they could have booked it different, I don't know, man. I need Adam Cole free from the Jericho purgatory. I'll be real with you. I don't know, man. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. I was trying to defend it in the Discord, but because Adam Cole's my guy, but it might have been it's the match I enjoyed the least, and that's saying a lot. I didn't like it, man. I really didn't like it. To make a long story short, I didn't like it, bro. I enjoy it. I think the match was bad. The booking is bad.
Yeah, a lot of people felt the same way. You're not alone in that. NK done a fantastic piece that you're going to hear on the podcast in regards to how Chris Jericho feuds go. Anyone listen to the podcast tomorrow and listen out for it. because you got it bang on, NK. It's
I'm
literally,
locked in. I'm locked in. I'm locked in. I'm locked in.
You got it bang on in terms of how Chris Jericho feuds go. We saw obviously the mixed tag match on Dynamite last night. NK, do you think this goes on past this now?
Of course, this is the Jericho tradition. I'm not going to spill what I said on the podcast too much, but like, there's a cycle of Jericho, and if you know Jericho's pattern, it will go on. Like, we're gonna get like maybe not till All In times, but post like this won't be the Blood and Guts feud, but like post Blood and Guts, we're still gonna get this. We're gonna get this for a while. Strap in. We're here for the long haul. Yeah, like we're gonna get this. Like it's just inevitable, and then. It's the thing where I feel like what AEW are doing is that they're stalling for Adam Cole in terms of I feel like they have big plans for him. I see him as a future MJF opponent, and that it's like in every title run, there's always those opponents where you think these are the guys that could potentially take the title off the champion. But I feel like with Adam Cole, they're just stalled. They're trying to give him like blood feud so to take him out of the title picture. But right now, this Chris Jericho thing started off well, and it should have just been a one-off match, in my opinion. Because with Jericho feuds, that the Jericho Appreciation Society has to get involved and has to be a whole faction war thing, and we don't need that right now, especially when the premier program right now is a faction war. It's like we don't need another one. So, yeah, unfortunately, this will go on.
Yeah, well. Like I said, I was invested in the story. I didn't mind the story at all. I think, you know, we got two really capable guys in Chris Jericho and Adam Cole having a great time in the ring, telling a great story. I was invested. The match just didn't pay off. The mixed tag match we got on Dynamite in the main event was very good, I felt, and, you know, probably should have been the main event. Sorry, probably should have been a Double or Nothing match, which would have got Britt and Saraya on the card as well. But yeah, we got an unsanctioned match, which, like Atlas was saying, it was very sanitary. There was no real violence. It just wasn't sold as that. So, yeah, we'll go past this match to some better stuff that happened on the Double or Nothing card. NK, I'll come back to you. We saw a new TBS champion crowned, Chris Stathlander. After Jade had her defense against Taya Valkyrie, which we said, you know, it might be the better of the two evil options that we had. Chris Stathlander came in. She answered the call that Mark Sterling said no one else was left. Chris Stathlander in quick succession, pretty much a squash match. Well, Jade obviously had just had a match. Put Jade to rest, 60-1. Chris Stathlander is now the TBS champion. And obviously on Dynamite, we saw a very good match, in my opinion, between her and Nyla Rose as her first title defense. What did you think of when Chris finally answered this call? We've almost been waiting for her to answer for a year now, and now we've had the first title defense as well.
The best scenario to a bad situation, but in terms of going into the pay-per-view, like I was very adamant that Taya Valkyrie shouldn't win. But I also understood that the TBS title was basically needed to come off Jade. The run was beyond stale, and we knew they were stalling for Chris Stathlander. What I liked about Chris debuting the way she did is that because they could have had her like debut at the end of the pay-per-view and then maybe set up a feud for an upcoming Dynamite or whatever, but then it would have taken like it would have been super predictable. Her coming out in the way she did and then kind of making a situation where Jade got overconfident protects Jade. And sometimes I'm annoyed that when we overprotect wrestlers, but it protects Jade in a way where it's like, cool, she still fell on her sword. She was the defending champion, but then we've brought Chris Stathlander in a meaningful and impactful way. And then the match she had with Nyla Rose is exactly why I was a big advocate for Chris Statlander, and probably why Tony wanted Chris as champion the whole time. With Jade, her main selling point is the fact that she looks like a megastar. She carries herself like a megastar. And, you know, for someone who hasn't been wrestling for that long, she's developed pretty decently. But there's levels. Chris Statlander is a she's a professional wrestler. She's a worker. And she's somebody who's not only got the look, she's like size-wise, she's comparable to Jade, but she's got the in-ring expertise, you know, that to go alongside her aesthetic. And I feel like Chris Statlander is going to take this title in a new direction where we're gonna get great matches. We're gonna get, you know, consistent title defenses. It's gonna be like very much with Jade. It was more so about, okay, the spectacle of Jade Cargill. With Chris Stathlander, now we're just gonna see, you know, this revert to like a mid-card title where Chris Statlander is going to be the workhorse of the division, which is ironic because you had Jamie Hayter, who's like a workhorse champion as the main champion, and you've got Tony Storm, who's also a workhorse champion, but obviously they got the Outcast stuff going on there, so maybe it will limit the amount of defenses that Tony gets. So you have someone like Chris Statlander to fill in that void of, okay, we're going to have great matches in the women's division, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Forbidden Doors around the corner. Hopefully, you know, we see the TBS title in that picture, and it frees up Jade to do something else. I don't know what else is next for her, but, you know, I want to see Jade move on to bigger and better things.
So, bro, that was my question to Atlas. Where does Jade go from here? Like, obviously, we've seen Tony Storm just win the women's title. A lot of people are saying that, you know, she needs to make that main event movement, go and face some of those people, if not for the championship itself, but face some of those women that in AEW are seen as, you know, the upper echelon of the division. Obviously, they've got ties with Ring of Honor. Obviously, they've got ties with New Japan and New Japan Strong. What do you think is next for Jade Cargill?
Fingers with Jade. The only thing is, so there's a few ways you could do this, right? Number one, I don't think you put her into the women's title picture, the main women's, the world title, because I feel like Tony's probably got some more bullshit he wants to do with this Outcast stuff. So that's off the board. You could do another match with Statlander, but there's no point because we know Statlander's going to win again. But maybe you kind of play off on that storyline where Jade's like, oh, I only lost because I just had a match, run it back. But then again, you have that as inevitability, but you know Statlander's going to win. I think maybe you try to get her over in another. Maybe you send her over to Japan. Maybe you see if you can get her over as like a gaijin monster in Japan. And I think going over to Japan and maybe working in Japan for a bit will help. Look, NK said she has. I don't want to like be mean in it. Jade has improved a lot in the ring. She still has a ways to go. She's improved a lot. But maybe you send her to Japan to work a little. Maybe you send her to ring. I don't know. I feel like she is a bit too much of a star to go to Ring of Honor, and I'm only saying that because of the way Tony books Ring of Honor. Like, I'm not looking down on Ring of Honor at all, but the way Tony's, I think someone said it, he's basically using Ring of Honor as another AEW Dark. So I think at this point in her career, Ring of Honor is kind of out of the picture. I think either you bend this Outcast thing and put her into the women's world title picture, or you send her over to Japan and try to get her over as like a gaijin monster in the women's division in Japan, because there are some interesting like opponents for her over in Japan. I would have loved to have seen, like, I don't know, like Jade and Jamie Hayter, just because they're two kind of like homegrown AEW young marketable stars, and there could have been something there. But like I said, we have to see how long Jamie's out for and see how we go forward with Jade. But I'd say either put her in that title picture and then off this Outcast thing, or send her over to New Japan and get her over as like a gaijin monster.
Both good options, to be honest. I think with Japan, the only thing I worry about, I know she's mentioned it before, is something she would like to do. Obviously, she's a mother to a very young child. So, I mean, she doesn't have to live in Japan. She just goes over there, does what she needs to do, and comes home. But yeah, I just don't know how that would necessarily work with that dynamic. But I think, one thing I think we could probably all agree on is she needs the matches. Obviously, New Japan Strong is there as like a little bridge between New Japan proper and, you know, America, so that could be an option. I was just thinking as well with the Outcast thing, I don't know how far Tony wants to go with the Outcast and the Originals, because now she's free up the belt, she could slide in with the Originals depending what Tony wants to do. Like, maybe the Originals are being outnumbered and it's a thing of, you know, wow, they all of a sudden we don't see Jade for weeks, and now Jade comes back as the monster that comes in with them. Who knows? NK, what were you saying on that? Sorry.
Yeah, so I was gonna say maybe obviously with the whole Japan thing, obviously Willow, an AEW talent, is obviously New Japan strong women's champion, and I don't want it to be a thing where like Jade comes in and beats Willow. I feel like if Willow's gonna lose, that's a Mercedes thing or whatever. But I feel like putting her in that mix, maybe New Japan will do consistent shows in the US. Have Jade appear on a New Japan Strong show and attack someone like the New Japan Strong Woman. I don't necessarily see her going to like wrestling for the IWGP Women's Championship in Japan. I don't necessarily see that, but New Japan Strong, especially with their women's division now, is an interesting spot. And I feel like, and then maybe, and I feel like that's a way you can kind of like maybe even like have not her versus Mercedes, but her interact with Mercedes in a way that's like it doesn't blow off, it doesn't like spoil a potential feud in the future, but just having these two cross paths and they're both of them are stars and it increases the exposure of Jade interacting with Mercedes, who's a legend at this point. So yeah, I think New Japan Strong is definitely an interesting avenue to take her down, but yeah, now in AEW, it's weird because the undefeated streak was her character for the longest point in time. Now, what do you do with that? Like, it's almost like, I don't want to compare her to Wardlow, but it's almost like, okay, after the whole MJF CM Punk feud finished, with like MJF and Wardlow, it's like, where do we go from here? And obviously, we've seen the outcome with Wardlow hasn't been great. I don't want Jade to be another person that started off well, and then after like her main title run or her main feud ended, it went to the gutter. Like that's not what I want for her. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to look at still.
I think the best bet is possibly she does take a step away from AEW, and not to say you just stop resting or go on a break or anything like that. Yeah, New Japan is there. Atlas rightly said Ring of Honor, she's probably, past that at this stage. New Japan is there, whether that's in the shape of Strong or, real thing in Japan. Like, I feel that's where she has to kind of turn up now. And then, like, her coming back to AEW will almost keep the mystique, because the mystique has been, I won't say damaged, but damaged a bit because the title's not there anymore and the streak's not there. So if she just turns up on TV every week now, it's like, is this really the Jade Cargill that we've been buying into for weeks, for months, for years at that point? So maybe, a little bit of time away before she returns and they have a solid plan rather than just sticking her out there and, giving us stuff that is substandard. Let's move on to the they said it was a double main event. We'll start with the 4 pillars 4-way match for the AEW World title. This was my actual wrestling match of the night. This was terrific. This showed that, the young guys are worth investing in. These particular 4, we saw shortcomings in the build to this because of the promos and stuff like that. But these guys, turned it on when it mattered. In those ring, they were, excellent for what they've done. Atlas, what did you think of this match?
If I was Dave Martz, I'd give it 5 stars. I fucking loved it. I loved it. It was like, there was so many like payoffs to so many different wrestling tropes. There was work rate, there was storytelling, there was high spots, there was, it was amazing. Like, I feel like triple threat matches are perfect in terms of my matches. Fatal 4s can kind of get a bit cluttered sometimes, but it was amazing. It's one of the. I'm trying to think of a better Fatal 4 match that I've seen like recently, like in the last 10 years or so, and I'm really struggling. Like, I fucking loved it, man. I thought it was amazing. Like, MJF is just, and Sammy Guevara, innit? You say what you want about Sammy Guevara, man. That boy can wrestle, man. Sammy Guevara, he can really fucking work, bro. And I like the finish as well, the headlock takeover. And I like how like MJF kind of didn't cheat to win, but it was like a dastardly, it was like a dastardly kind of, obviously we'll probably talk about the Battle Royal, but you know how like the finish for the Battle Royal kind of supplemented Orange Cassidy's character. I feel like this finish very, very much supplemented MJF's character. So to finish it was amazing. Even the bit where you grab the mic, and like Sammy said, it was just amazing, man. I loved it. I ain't got a bad word to say about that match. Loved it.
Yeah, they've done a great job. NK, what's your thoughts on it?
This match was sensational, man. And this is why I always, and I like that throughout this feud, even though I've said that the build's been hit or miss, I've always admired like the risk AEW's taken, because you can say that these are established guys and there was a routine title defense for MJF, but it's like you've got 4 young guys that you've put in this spot, and granted they weren't the main event, but they're fighting for like the biggest prize in the company, innit? And just the the way that everyone felt at home in the match, everyone felt like they belonged. There wasn't a person in this match where I felt like their in-ring work was lacking or they didn't show up in the match. Like, we can talk about maybe some of these guys in terms of like their promo skills and in terms of like all the stuff that you need to build to a match. But once all four of these guys were wrestling, the match did absolutely delivered. I mean, just the callback spots, like the whole my favorite spot was obviously like the every time they paid they did their mentors finisher. So you had MJF hit the crossroads, Darby hit the scorpion deathlock, Jungle Boy hit the kill switch, and then Sammy Guevara hit the cold breaker. Like, it just shows that like these men are here to stay. And obviously some of them got a lot of developing to do, but like in terms of like them as actual wrestlers, which is what we come to see, they've got it in the bag, man. They've got it in the bag.
Yeah, it was very good. Like I say, best match on the card. Very impressed from all of them. It's gonna be interesting to see. We saw obviously Jungle Boy like get back with Hook on Dynamite, which I was thinking, turn on Hook. Like, turn on Hook, even if it's not going to happen in this particular episode of Dynamite, like, because this is ultimately a backwards move without any change in character. So I'm hoping that's who they might have in mind, because obviously people love Hook. Hopefully that is what's going to come from this, because otherwise I'm not trying to see Hook and Jungle Boy as a tag team personally. But
how would you see Jungle Boy as a heel though?
I just think we just need to make him a bit more stoic. Obviously talking isn't, his strong suit right now. Just give him more of a mature look. Reduce his style in ring, because obviously his in ring style is very enjoyable, but just reduce it, make him a bit quote unquote boring, if you like. Just give him something to really sink his teeth into, because you can't be kind of telling us he's evolving, and like the Jungle Boy part is what kills me. Like, you start calling him Jack Perry and all of this kind of stuff, but the music is still there, the outfit is still there. Like, he hasn't grown in that sense, and his big dinosaur Luchasaurus that used to roll with him has even turned, with his appearance at least. So if we want to take Jungle Boy to that next level, because if we're completely honest, out of all of the four pillars, just in terms of total packages, Jungle Boy is probably last if you're to rank the four of them.
He is.
So yeah, we just need to kind of, kick on from the in-ring stuff. He's got it in spades. Like, we know he'll be fine there. It's the character stuff, which I think just needs to evolve a bit. But yeah, from the four pillars, we'll go to obviously, these top guys, that these guys are the ones that need to, become better than at some point. We had Anarchy in the arena match, Elite versus BCC. Anarchy in it, like absolute chaos. NK, what did you think of this match?
This was better than last year's, in my opinion. This is exactly what I wanted it to be. It's just chaos. Like, Anarchy in the arena is controlled chaos, but like, I still get that feeling of like, I don't know what's gonna happen next. Obviously, the big talking point of the match is obviously like the Dynamite super kick, which I adored. But just like the craziness of the match, the fact that this year it wasn't just Wild Things, it was a live rendition of Wild Things, which added a different element to the match. It was like, it's hard to put into words what this match was. It was just an experience, and what I loved about this match is like, I can only get this at AEW. It felt like a unique selling point. It felt like you can get no disqualification matches. You can get like violent matches, but Anarchy in the Arena, for what Anarchy in the Arena is, you can only get this at AEW. And I love when companies have that unique selling point that distinguishes themselves from other wrestlings. Because at the end of the day, AEW is an alternative. It's a different. Every company should have their own USP, unique selling point. And I feel like Anarchy in the Arena is a perfect example of why AEW is AEW. That is something that you won't get anywhere else. That you can get death matches somewhere else, but they're not Anarchy, because Anarchy in the Arena is the mixture of like, yeah, you've got violent chaos, but but at the same time, it's intentionally goofy at times. And I feel like that blend between the two works so well for what Anarchy in the Arena is. So yeah, I thought this match was just it was an experience. Like I couldn't even grade this on a match scale, because it's just like, how do you rank this? Like based on what? Like it's just you just have to go there and experience this. But yeah, this was excellent.
Yeah, it's its own little mad thing. Atlas, obviously we saw the ending. A certain someone that turned on Omega some weeks back reared his head again with Takeshita, that when he revealed himself. And then obviously you've seen Dynamite, you saw the level of heat that these men were in, the proper hell fire. Like that the reaction was crazy.
That's real heel heat.
I saw someone say on the timeline that they were there last night and they're speaking to someone next to them and they couldn't hear them because of the boos and stuff.
Yeah,
like
I've seen videos. I've seen videos where people have recorded from multiple angles. You can't hear Don Callis speak. Like you can't hear him. Like I've watched bad footage where you cannot hear him speak. I don't even know. I don't think the audience heard anything he had to say.
There was parts where I, sitting at home, didn't hear what he said. Like it was crazy. It was something different that we get these little moments.
Like at one point he actually got frustrated.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't tell if it was a work or not. He was like, he turned to Giovanni and was like, "What am I supposed to do?"
Like I'm glad that he actually opted to kind of speak over them rather than wait and all of that kind of stuff, because him trying to speak over them only caused them to go more madder. Then he had to kind of take it to a next level and stuff like that. Atlas, what did you think of this entire angle? Obviously, from the pay-per-view of Takeshita coming in and doing what he did, turning effectively, and then obviously the reaction at Dynamite.
I think the Don Callis turn was coming. I feel like they've been kind of showing it bit by bit. You've kind of seen the dissension a little bit and Callis being a bit booky with him. I wasn't expecting Takeshita though. That was like I wasn't expecting that. It was the only reason why I'm happy about the Takeshita is because now we're probably gonna get Kenny Takeshita, or we're gonna get Hangman Takeshita. Based on the promo last night, we might even get Kazuchika Okada versus Konosuke. I'm buzzing thinking about it. You get me? I'm a dream match guy, and I'm like, listen, I think I even said this when I came on the podcast before. Listen, just get two guys who are amazing and just figure something out, figure out a storyline, and just stick them in the ring together, innit? You get me? So for me, I'm always looking at things from a matchmaking perspective. So as soon as I've seen Takeshita do the heel turn, I'm thinking, okay, we might get Kenny Takeshita. Then obviously at the end, Kenny had the promo, and that's what I tweeted. Like I was tweeting with NK, and I was like, yo, Kenny's gone to, you get me? He's gone back to New Japan to go get the goons. He's gonna come back with Okada. He's gonna come back with Kota Ibushi. You get me? So I like it, and I feel like with Takeshita, he did kind of strike me as a bit of like a white meat babyface. But I think if you have Don Callis as his mouthpiece and kind of just have him there as like the kind of, for lack of a better term, like foreign heel who only speaks in his language, is very stone-faced, and Callis can kind of be his mouthpiece, and then you just kind of let him have dream matches with babyfaces, it will work. And bro, that heat, that heel heat, that is real. That's that. You know what it is? That's that heel heat that they tell you about, and like the territories back in the South,
day.
In the 90s, bro. That's that heel heat. Oh shit! Yeah. I loved it. I loved it, man. I love it. This is pro wrestling, bro. This is pro wrestling. This is what I'm here for, bro. That's that real heel heat. Like, you get me? Loved it.
That's that southern wrestling heat. Southern wrestling. That's that Jim Crockett Promotions heat. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that segment there. Listen, when Don Callis got booed and it just kept going, the man couldn't speak, and then Takeshita was speaking in his language and he's speaking in Japanese, and I was like, yes, cuss these man. And the thing is, like, it was able to do like the foreign heel without like it being racist. It was like, like I'm comfortable speaking in my language. I'm gonna do it. And I don't know if you might noticed, but when Don Callis was saying he was better than every Japanese wrestler, right? And when he said Okada, the camera tilted to the
They
Forbidden Door
panned
sign.
to Forbidden Door.
They tilted it, and I was like, oh, that's excellent. And that's what a subtle story. Like it was like obviously Don Callis saying Okada wasn't subtle, but like the Forbidden Door thing where it's like, okay, it puts it in your mind that even if the match doesn't happen, it's like, okay, you've got people speculating and thinking, do I want to see this? And now you've added weight to the match because of the story. I always feel like Atlas, like the matches are very important. The story is the vehicle to get to the matches, and the vehicle is driving. It's going at 100 miles an hour. We're driving. Let's get to this. Let's get to these matches. Let's get to these great matches.
Yeah. This was very good. From what happened at the pay-per-view to end the pay-per-view to, you know, this particular segment that we got on Dynamite last night. They've set it up in such a way. There's a multitude of avenues. There's a multitude of ways they can go from here, which is good, and it keeps us guessing and keeps things interesting. And with Forbidden Door on the horizon, you know, we might get some type of spin-off from the feud we're getting at Forbidden Door. We know Blood and Guts follows that, and that's real gang warfares and maybe the blow-off of the BCC versus the Elite. And for sure, there might be a couple man added to that situation, which will be kind of tantalizing to see when it comes. So, yeah, we're in a very good place with this story. And it's going to be hard for the world title to, you know, take precedence with whatever's happening at Forbidden Door. I don't really see how the world title would, you know, take precedence over this current story.
For both companies, I can't lie, for both companies, because MJF like trying to take precedent over the storyline is going to be hard, and then Sanada, because you know, like we know, like both titles at Forbidden Door, well, at least based on last year, have made an appearance. It's hard, especially Dominion's coming up on Sunday, and remember they in the promo, Hammer said Kenny's like not in Canada. We think he's Japan. Kenny could make an appearance at Dominion because Blackpool Combat Club are facing Okada, Tanahashi, and then if he's calling Okada anyway to come to AEW, I can't lie. There's ways to tell. If they told this story across two promotions, I can't lie. This is gonna.
That's exactly what they should be doing, because this is what we said last year that they didn't do. They basically finished one pay-per-view, 4 weeks till Forbidden Door, and they just started slapping together matches without that story. Give us that, because you've already started telling BCC and Shota versus Okada and them, man. So like all it takes is for, say, BCC to get the win at Dominion, and then we see Omega, like it comes in afterwards, picks Okada off the mat, like goes backstage with him. Just something as small and subtle as that, if they want to do that. Like just little things to kind of help sew the story together is what we need at this point. I thought it was very telling, Hangman dropping that line in there, like, and before he stormed off, and Kenny's not in Canada. I thought that was cool. So yeah, I think we're getting into a good place for Forbidden Door. But like you said, the world titles at this point are, for both companies, are pretty irrelevant going into this. Just to kind of cover what happened on Dynamite quickly. Show open, we had a Blackpool Combat Club versus the Lucha Bros and Bandido. Like the Bandido spot where he held up my man in the suplex for 60 seconds. It's just ridiculous strength, and it looked like a point where, you know, he was fading with Utah, and the crowd literally gave him that energy to continue. What did you think of this, Atlas, as an opening match, and obviously the Blackpool Combat Club again continuing winning ways?
So I had my issue is I don't know if it's an issue. So for instance, before I answer the question, I'll give context before I answer. So at Revolution, obviously Hangman and Moxley had the death match. Moxley wrestled 3 days later on Dynamite. I said, okay, cool. Now we fast forward to Double or Nothing. They have the Anarchy in the arena. 3 days later, these men wrestle again. And now I'm struggling with, that's unrealistic, to it services the character of the BCC being anytime, any place, anywhere, some bitches, innit? And I hear that. But at the same time, it's like, if we really want to sell these matches as being brutal, career-changing, like last resort, not blow off, but last resort, settle the beef kind of thing, then I don't know. It was a good match. If you want me to review the match, it was a good match. I enjoyed the match. I like what they're doing with Wheeler Yuta. And can I tell you something as well? You lot are going to think I'm saying it just because it's happened, but when Wheeler Yuta got pinned on Dynamite last week, I knew he was going to get the pin on the weekend. Because the way they kind of gave him a little bollocking in the ring, and he's kind of standing there with his hands behind his back, you get me, and they're giving him grief for getting pinned. I knew they were going to bring that full circle, and he was going to get the pin, and then he ended up getting the pin again on Dynamite. So I like what they're doing with Wheeler, kind of taking him away from that kind of run of the group, scrappy do kind of character to someone who's actually credible. Do you know what I mean? Pin Kenny Omega, pin Bandido, because especially after he lost the title to Shibata as well, maybe it did kind of look like he was a bit lesser. Because listen, man, Daniel Bryan's one of the greatest of all time. Moxley is amazing. Claudio has been one of the best wrestlers in the world for 20 years. So it's like Wheeler's always going to kind of stick out in a bad way. So I think it is good that they are trying to legitimize him a little bit more. So I love the match. I love the services doing to the Blackpool Combat Club story. I just can't fully get my head around these men wrestling so soon after these brutal matches, innit? But that's just nitpicking.
There's definitely an element. I know, I hear you. There's definitely an element of overexposure, and it's like they keep putting them in these trios matches, and I'm like, I feel if they're coming and doing this, then they should really be battering man every single time. And I might be called blood hungry or whatever, but if they're having these trio matches, yeah, they should be busting people open in terms of blood and everything like that. Like, yeah. I feel like if it's just these men having a trios match, it's just overexposure. Especially if their goal isn't to build up wins to go for the trios title. They haven't said that's their goal. Otherwise, I'd understand it. But
they're just kicking ass for kicking ass sake, innit?
Yeah, but then I mean, I would love it to be an extensive, like, we're proper battering people. So it just goes to another level. We've talked about obviously the segment with Hangman and the Bucks backstage. Obviously, we saw the Dark Order kind of rear their heads. We ain't seen them for a minute, and they were kind of having a go at Hangman as well. So we'll see where that develops into. We've talked about Tony Khan and his announcement with CM Punk. Another segment that happened in between this was Bullet Club Gold coming out, kind of sticking it to Ricky Starks, calling out FTR, which they made reference to. I think FTR came and helped Ricky Starks before from a beatdown or something, right?
Yeah, they did Double or Nothing.
Yeah, I ended Double or Nothing.
Yeah. NK, what's your thoughts on FTR tangling with Bullet Club Gold?
I like it. First of all, boss, a Jay White promo. We covered Jay's Jay White promo.
Finally.
And this is why we wanted more promos. It was funny. It was more comedic than I was expecting. But I liked it.
It was good
and
stuff.
You know what? Him and Juice as an act together. Do you know what it is? I was against him and Juice because I felt like Juice held him back. But if it's a thing of where it's like, cool, you've got Jay White as the front man, and then you've got Juice as like the loudmouth, the person who respectfully in these feuds can afford to eat a pin. Cool. But I can't lie. I'm happy. I hope they crib this Ricky Starks thing next week and Ricky Starks loses and we get to FTR versus Bullet Club Gold. I wouldn't even mind if it's for the tag titles. If that's the next tag team championship feud, I'm all for it. I want good things for Jay White, and obviously good things for Jay White doesn't necessarily mean he has to win a title tomorrow. I just want him in meaningful feuds with top guys. Do you know what I'm saying? I want him in meaningful feuds with top guys, and I feel like play to Jay White's strength. Jay White is one of the best characters in wrestling, and the boy can wrestle. He has his wrestling style is he's best when you put him with somebody who's like, I don't know, an out and out. Let's say a worker's worker like Roderick Strong. He's best when you put him against someone like that because he's a lot of his move is based on shifting momentum, counter wrestling, and all that type of stuff. But Jay White is an amazing wrestler in ring, anyways. But his character is the most appealing part about him, and I feel like this segment was a very small glimpse but it was a glimpse into what we can expect from Jay White going forward. So yeah, man, I totally like this. I like the whole Juice Robinson having the whole quarters in his hand when he punched FTR, and it made them look strong. I don't like the fact that this is a trope in wrestling that I don't like in general, but I don't like the fact that when heels run too much. Like every week is Ricky Starks coming in, they run away. Like it's 2 against 1, scrap him. But he had a chair, so I get it. But yeah.
Just following on from your point about Jay White. Sorry, you see how you say one thing I love about Jay White, his wrestling style. Because I'll be honest, I wasn't as familiar, especially with Jay White, because a lot of the New Japan I've watched like over the years, it's just been a lot of Kenny or Manga Tanahashi, etc. But like I paid more attention to Jay White, especially when he started feeding Okada his lunch every time they fought, and especially since Wrestle Kingdom, I've been watching a lot of his old matches. What I love about Jay White is more so than a lot of top wrestlers, his wrestling style services his character so well. Like the way he wrestles, he's slimy, he cuts momentum. Do you know what I mean? He's he waits for his opportunities. He's a great counter. Like his character and his wrestling style work so hand in hand. I love it. I love it so much. I love watching Jay White. He's amazing, man. I like what they're doing with him as well. I don't feel like I don't buy into the sentiment that Jay White has to come into the company and straight away feud with Omega or feud with Danielson or go to the title picture. Like, no, you can put him up against a guy who's like a solid mid-carder, like a Ricky Starks, and you can build him up, get him familiar with the US audience, and then you go from there. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and not everyone can be in the title picture. Do you know what I mean? And he looks like he's having fun with this. So
I agree. I mean, my argument and my downside of what they've done with Jay White hasn't been that he hasn't been brought into the title picture. It's more like Ricky is just coming out of a feud with MJF for the world title. So you've somewhat elevated Ricky. Jay White has come in. You're telling us he's a former IWGP champion, never openweight champion, this title, that title. He's done it all in New Japan. They didn't necessarily treat him like he was a big deal. Like treat him like he's the big deal that he is when he comes in. Ricky, you've helped elevate because you put him in a world title picture. And it's too easy between these two guys because they're both great talkers. They could have sold us a great match. Should have had a pay-per-view match out of what they were doing. I just don't feel they treated Jay White as a big deal. He didn't need to be a world champion contender immediately. It's just the treatment, which I felt, they fell short on there. But they're on the road to rectifying it seems. So next up, we'll kind of just glaze past this because this is kind of two-parted. We had Big Bill versus Swerve versus Trent Beretta. This was a really good match. It was a good fun match that these lot put on. And we saw Swerve get the win here. Then this match later on down the line was followed by Gates of Agony versus Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy. And Cassidy and Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin got the win here. And obviously then we saw what's his face come out. What's this guy that wrote? The other one. Prince Nana and what's his face? Brian Cage. I don't know why. He lost it, came from my mind. Brian Cage come out. Swerve comes out. Obviously the back Gates of Agony. We then later found out next week we're getting for the international title Orange Cassidy up against Swerve. I said on the podcast that when I was watching Double or Nothing, we had the final two of Swerve and Orange Cassidy. And for that, I thought Orange Cassidy was going to, retain the title. That was my prediction going into it. That was the only moment I thought this would be a really good place to put the title on Swerve. Like, I feel like he has done some good work, and especially in that last 5 minutes, it was a really good interaction. And Cassidy, they said, they've been telling the story, he's hanging on for his dear life for this championship at this point. Now we've actually got the match, which I think would be even better for Swerve if he pins the champion. NK, what's your thoughts on this match? Do you think it is time now that we move on from Orange Cassidy as champion?
Yeah, I think it's time. And I feel like, do you know what, objectively, like, from like the Double or Nothing pay-per-view to now, and even the match he had with Big Bill and Trent Beretta was actually a really good match. Like I was surprised at how good it was. Big up Big Bill. He did well in that match. Yeah. Still not 100% sold, but he did well in that match. You gotta give him his flowers. But so what they've done from Double or Nothing to now to build up to Swerve is good. I just wish Swerve was a more consistent fixture overall. I felt like, let's say from Revolution onwards, I don't know, you could have given Swerve a bit more wins because it feels like they've just moved on from the Keith Lee stuff, which I'm happy about. Just move on.
Can I interrupt
I'm
you
happy
quickly?
about it.
Let me interrupt you quickly before you continue. He is consistent on Rampage. And that's the issue. I don't know if you know how many people are watching that to know that he's consistent. So it's not a you problem. It's just, you know, we pop up and see him on Dynamite. It's like, oh yeah, where's Swerve been? But
yeah, Feuds. But has the thing on Rampage been the Keith Lee stuff? Has he been like building up his wins just by himself?
Him and Keith Lee just been butting heads and avoiding each other, and it's been meaty.
But I'm happy they've moved on from it because sometimes we don't need story to wrap up. Just move on. If it's not going anywhere, move on. But seeing Swerve with the title makes sense. But I don't know. And this is just sometimes what's wrong with wrestling fans. Sometimes even me, the fantasy booking of Roosh is just too sweet in my head. I'm married to that idea.
Likewise.
The idea of Roosh is just, I'm married to it in my head. I'm like, I want Roosh. I want the Roosh.
Yeah.
But at the same time, based on what they've given us, Swerve makes perfect sense. Swerve, you know, something like this will do Swerve a ton of good. And Swerve is somebody where not only can he continue the lineage of great matches, obviously he won't have the same type of matches on Cassidy because he's a heel, but Swerve is someone who's reliable, he's charismatic, and, you know, week to week, maybe not week to every other week, he could put on a great match. And he's a great character as well, so you can add a different dynamic to Orange Cassidy as well. So, yeah, Swerve makes perfect sense. So, yeah, I think it's time for Orange Cassidy to lose. Obviously, he can lose by shenanigans. Like, Brian Cage can get involved. You know, like Swerve doesn't have to win clean, but I think it's time. Because if it's not Swerve, then if Swerve doesn't win, then the campaign for Roosh is I'm flying the flag. Because at this point, it's getting ridiculous.
I think it does a lot for the Mogul affiliates or whatever they're called now with you know, that group, because they're perennial losers. Like I didn't want to be cynical, but I'm watching Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy lose to guys about 4 times their size, and I'm just thinking, oh, you men are in the mud. But you know, adding a title, then they'll all have a title. Because them man win on Ring of Honor. They always win on Ring of Honor in their trios matches. Obviously, they're champions. So it's just on AEW TV, they're not booked well. But yeah, it could do well for, you know, that faction, especially if it's time. Atlas, do you think it's time for Swerve to win it?
I think it's time for him to win it. I think you don't need to put a title on Swerve, but I feel like if he has a bit of gold, then the way he carries himself, I think his character will be enhanced by having some gold around his waist. Because he has something he can kind of dangle in people's faces. Do you know what I mean? He has something he can kind of show off. Because right now he's just talking. He's just talking, you know. But if you put some gold on him, and also I don't want to say Cassidy's run has gone stale, because it definitely hasn't gone stale. But what I love about an open challenge, and I don't want to compare it to these two because obviously this is top of the top. But so I just John Cena's United States Open Challenge. It's what I love about an open challenge is that you see the champion get worn down bit by bit by bit by bit, but eventually you have to pay that off. And I feel like it is time to pay that off for Orange Cassidy, because it's getting to the point now where it's like you said it the other day, right, with the Kimura thing. When you watch wrestling, you do have to suspend your disbelief. But I'm seeing Orange Cassidy get dropped on his head 3 times in a match and kick out, and he's selling how hurt he is. And it's like sooner or later, these injuries have to catch up with him, and he has to get got eventually. And I feel like Swerve is the guy who's kind of worthy of, you know, because like NK said, he can continue that lineage of great matches. You can put him in there of anyone. There's so many great mid-carders he can have great matches with, you know. So I think it is time. And I think Swerve's perfect.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. We've discussed obviously the TBS title with Stathlander and Nyla Rose, and that was a really good match to kind of, you know, take this TBS title into a new direction. We obviously talked about the main event with the mixed tag match as well to some degree, with the Adam Cole and Chris Jericho story rumbling in the back. So yeah, Dynamite was really good. I thought really good out of the pay-per-view and really good to kind of set us on our way towards Forbidden Door as well. I just got one last question before we wrap up the stream today. Big up Kieran. Kieran's come and put here in the chat. NK, how good is it to have Shibata at ZSJ on Rampage this week? Just to talk about this Rampage card now, like I made a point of saying I watch Rampage every week, but I'll be lying if I tell you I'm watching it. It's on in the background, and I'm usually doing something else, and I might tune in for whatever the main event is, whatever the case is, right? This approach for Rampage for this particular week, we've got a match for the AAA World Title happening. We've got a match for the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, the New Japan TV titles on the line, and the Ring of Honor Pure Championship is on the line. It's almost like maybe with Collision obviously on the horizon as well, they're maybe taking a new approach with how they're going to book Rampage. And it's almost like the home for maybe the other stuff that they do and other people they're involved with in the little AEW universe, if you like. I mean, everyone's talking about this Rampage card. I haven't seen any spoilers. I tend to stay away from spoilers. Obviously, it's already happened at this point. It airs on Friday. But what do you guys think about this approach? Should it be this, like almost like a little glorified indie super show, if you like, every week, rather than forcing us to watch AEW seconds?
Absolutely. And if you go back, I think the first Rampage, the main event was Kenny Omega versus Christian for the Impact title.
Correct.
And it was like, of course, now Kenny Omega and Christian were having a Dynamite feud, but what made that main event feel important was because obviously Kenny Omega was doing the belt collector thing, but because of the Impact Championship. And now AEW, we always say like AEW has too many titles, where it's like even you have guys from other promotions, they can't really fit into Dynamite because there's so much stuff going on Dynamite. And then now you've got Collision, which is again probably going to be another like mainstay show where you're going to have a lot of storyline progressions with characters like CM Punk and so on forth. So with Rampage, this is the perfect way to utilize people like Vikingo. You've got a working relationship with AAA. Utilize that. Perfect use of Willow, because once Willow won the Strong Championship, we were always concerned that, okay, what are we gonna do? Because we've got the Women's Championship, we've got TBS. Like, where's Willow gonna fit in on a show like Rampage? And before it used to be Rampage was a throwaway, but now you put Willow amongst Zack Sabre Jr., amongst Shibata, amongst Vikingo, amongst people. You basically made Rampage a super indie at this point. Yeah. If you put her amongst those people, we have a reason to tune in. And what I love about this is that it gives me something different to watch than Dynamite. I don't expect to see Vikingo on Dynamite defending weekly. I don't expect to see Zack Sabre Jr. I don't expect to see Shibata. But now, I'm not saying they should do this every week, but now with Rampage, I'm like, there's a unique selling point this week. I get to see championships. I think every championship being defended isn't an AEW title. So again, it's just a new thing for me to tune into, and then the quality of wrestling is going to be ridiculous. I can't. This is the first time in months, and when I say months, that I'm going to say I am very excited for Rampage. Very excited for Rampage.
I definitely think this is the direction they should go in, because now you've literally got Collision, like. And if it's not going to be a B show, hopefully not, it's its own entity, it's going to have its own importance and stuff, then what is Rampage sort of thing? So maybe making it like AEW and Friends kind of show, and we're getting maybe not championship matches every week, but you could be having those kind of high level matches, or just like dream level matches you always kind of wanted to see between people that are available, come down and have. I think it's a good thought, if that's what they've thought, or it maybe it's a happy coincidence. Who knows? Atlas, do you watch Rampage?
Here and there. I don't tune into Rampage as much. I'll be honest. Like, what I'll do is, if it's like a Thursday night or like a Friday morning or whatever, I'll go on like AEW's Instagram and see what the card's saying. Because I don't feel like. I'm just not as interested in Rampage, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I hear it.
Whenever I do watch Rampage, just like you, I'll stick it on. I'll stick it on in the background. But I'm definitely gonna watch this. Like, NK knows how much I love Shibata. Like, I love Shibata. I'm a fan of Zack Sabre Jr. as well. So I'm definitely going to tune in. And what MK is saying is true, because if you stick someone like Willow on a card with the likes of Shibata, the likes of Zack Sabre Jr., she's getting exposure by osmosis, because people like me are going to tune in to see them, and then just by a byproduct, I'm going to watch her match. So she might get a new fan. Not me, I like Willow. But people like me, now she might get a new fan or two. And I think that's how you're supposed to do it. You kind of put these people who you want to give more exposure to in these cards with great wrestlers, and they just, you know what I mean? They gain exposure just like that. So, yeah.
It's a lot of opportunity, even for the AAA guys that will probably open the show. Like, it's a lot of opportunity for everyone. Like, you know, and 4 matches, 8 to 10 minutes each. Stick your adverts in there. The jobs are good, and like no one will complain. You know, that's the 1 hour of wrestling TV people were looking forward to when Rampage began. You know, with the kind of main events that NK you mentioned before and stuff like that. And Moxley was turning up quite a bit on Rampage those early days. Like, just give us bang, 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 1 hour done. Like, and we're all saying it's a good show. So yeah, hopefully they kind of return to some type of model like that.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I just want to say as well, I must give like AEW credit for this. The amount of spotlight they've put on luchadors as of recent memory, they've been a lot, like just Lucha Bros, Vikingo, Commander, Dralistico, just Mexican wrestlers in general. If you think about Andrade and Rush, like this is kind of what I want to see, and I love the fact that these guys get to wrestle like as close to like their lucha libre style as possible. Of course, they got to adapt to an American audience, but like it feels like authentic luchador, not this gentrified nonsense that we've been getting sometimes. Just authentic luchadors being luchadors. So it's like, yeah, it's like big up like even in the opening match we had Lucha Bros and Bandido, like. Great, and then now on the and now on a Friday, we're getting the AAA championship being defended, and you got Commander and Dralistico versus Vikingo. So it's like, yeah, I just love the fact that I'm seeing lucha talent being showcased, and you know, they're being treated with respect. Like, I haven't seen no dumb spots where the mask has been trying to be ripped off. They're just like they're luchadors. They wear masks. We respect the heritage. We continue. The only people that want to rip their masks off are Ray Phoenix and Pentagon. But that's them, innit? But yeah, just I wanted to spotlight that.
Penta hates his mask, bro. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to kind of take it away from AEW or anything like that. You're right in saying what you're saying, but for those that remember, this was a key ingredient in WCW and WCW's success. They were the people that kind of put a big emphasis on cruiserweight wrestling, big emphasis on luchadors, and you know, do what works, and they're doing what works, and it's paying dividends. So yeah, definitely, it's great to see that variation.
But that's why like Ring of Honor. Sorry to cut you off, but that's why like Ring of Honor, when Ring of Honor first came, because like we all know Ring of Honor came about when WCW obviously got bought by WWE, and it was a thing where there wasn't that alternative anymore, you know. And the reason why something like Ring of Honor was so popular was because it was refreshing. It was a new style of wrestling, or a different style of wrestling to what we were being presented in WWE, because WWE does paint wrestlers with a broad stroke. Like you watch, like I wouldn't say Ring of Honor because it was years ago. You watch like New Japan AJ Styles. I watch AJ Styles in WWE. He's still amazing, but it's different, you know. Yeah, it's different. It's different. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely that alternative. That's what I love so much about AEW, is that you can see lucha for strong style. You can see kind of, you know, classic American against, I don't know, catch as catch can. Like you can see all the different styles of wrestling come together. It's not broad stroke, wrestle a certain way, match formula. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We actually had a very interesting discussion on AEW's direction, if you like, on the podcast that will come out tomorrow. So yeah, have a listen and let us know what you think. But yeah, we'll draw a line in the sand here. I mean, it's been a good episode. We've covered Double or Nothing. We've covered obviously the big news of CM Punk officially being back. We've covered Dynamite. Atlas, big up yourself for coming through, bro. We appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Anytime. It's been a good one. It's good to hear other people's ideas and, you know, how they're kind of taking in the show as well. guys, if you're watching live, we appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Like we're saying, the new podcast it's a new era, it's a new beginning as of tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy what you're about to kind of see and take in the evolution of WRESTHINGS, if you like. And yeah, we had a lot of good conversations in regards to Double or Nothing and what we saw from that pay-per-view. So make sure you tune in. But we'll be back same time next week, Revolution Radio, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.